Good evening, Arborland friends and family. I'm so excited to be here. I'm Miss Veronica, and I'm so proud here to host our first ever Arborland virtual art exhibition. Now, like language arts, math, science, social science, technology, Spanish, PE, and even music, art is an important required part of our Arborland curriculum. And this year, our elementary students have been learning so much about lines, shapes, color, texture, space, and more. Now, prior to COVID, our students would have showcased their art live at our campus on either Children's Night and Science Fair. But because of COVID, we've had to be a little bit more creative this year in order to show off our wonderful students' work. So here we are at our first ever virtual art exhibition. Now, here to help me is Miss Wang, our art teacher. Miss Wang is a dedicated teacher, and she has a degree in architecture and years of experience in the design fields. She has a huge passion for helping students thrive, and she spent 6 years teaching art and Spanish at a K-8 private institution prior to joining Arborland. And she is a native speaker who has lived in 3 different countries, and she brings a global perspective to her lessons. Welcome, Miss Wang.
Hello, everyone.
How are you doing?
I'm so glad to be here. I'm doing well.
Great. Well, it has definitely been a unique year for us, and especially for you, having to teach art both online and in person, and often at the same time. So can you share with us a little about what our students have been learning in art class?
Of course, it is my pleasure. So I'm going to start by just sharing my screen with you all. And this year has been just wonderful. And we just started with our lower elementary students studying line and color. And at the beginning of the year, what we did is we started looking at how to see the beauty around us in our world and how artists can express that in their paintings. We learned to use cool colors, and also we learned to use warm color schemes and as well as complementary color schemes. And we also learned to draw beautiful landscapes and cityscapes as we did that. We learned the concept of horizon line. It is so important at this stage to learn that concept. And we learned how to bring that color, complementaries and contrasting colors to make our artwork very bright. We observed also that things that are far away look smaller than things that are closer to us. And we created depth by using size and position. So here, for example, Shayna is showing us bigger trees in the foreground and then smaller trees in the background. And she also included a path that became narrower until it vanished at one point. Then Naya did a beautiful cityscape, and short strokes she used as she was exploring texture. So this is more of that beautiful artwork. Throughout this chapter, we discussed artists like Vince Van Gogh and David Hockney, as well as Claude Monet. Then we moved on to the next chapter, in which we explored shape and color. And here we studied organic shapes and geometric shapes. What we did is we created a beautiful castle inspired by Paul Klee, and we used colorful pastels to do that. Here we did some paper cutouts as we were analyzing buildings, but mostly what we learn is the concept of background, foreground, and middle ground as well. And these are some of those beautiful cityscapes that they did. And they were exploring geometric shapes at this point. We learned about Henry Matisse. This was a very fun project. We explored his paper cutouts, and the students had the opportunity to explore many different kinds of organic shapes and how to organize them in a composition. We understood that we can overlap to show some depth. And also we talked about color, the color interactions. We continued our exploration of organic shapes as we were having fun drawing pumpkins. With this project, we also wanted to understand the concept of emphasis. Also, we paid attention to the background colors to create contrast. So that was also very important. Another concept that we learned as we did this project is the concept of value. So we did some shading, and we learned about shading and highlights. And as you can see, Ali, Shayna, and Harper successfully did that with different tones of orange. We gained also a deeper understanding of the interaction between the background and the foreground. And as you can see, Timothy did that contrast with the cool colors in the background and the warm moving forward for the foreground to highlight his beautiful drawing. We moved on and we talked a little bit about Georgia O'Keeffe as we were continually exploring organic shapes and emphasis as well. And these are some of the beautiful flowers that they did. Of course, we cannot not talk about Pablo Picasso and George Braque as we study shape. And in this case, we were analyzing more like geometric shapes. And also we introduced the concept of a neutral color scheme as the students just developed these beautiful musical instruments compositions. All right, so this was our next chapter, and here we talked about symbols, memories, and dreams. And we learned that we can express our ideas and tell something about ourselves by using symbols. And we also learned that we can communicate our memories and tell beautiful stories in our artwork. We also learned that we can express these memories in a very realistic way, but also in a very dreamlike kind of way. So I would like to point out to you Jack's artwork. I think he did such a wonderful job, and it was very creative the way in which he organized his the things that he liked and the things that he remembered in the circles, and the strong background that he created to do that. We also, the students also designed their own coats of arms, and they chose animals or elements to represent them personally, to say something about themselves. In this chapter, we looked at artwork by Marc Chagall and his dreamlike kind of way of doing his art. And also we talked about the coat of arms and how in a very long time ago, people designed these coats of arms to represent their own family names. We're going to move on to the next chapter. We'll learn so much, and it was such a fun chapter where we learned to draw faces, figures in motion, and also a little bit about pop art at the end. Here you can see Kayla's version of Diego Rivera's beautiful boy and girl paintings. By looking at some of Diego Rivera's artwork, we learn about body proportions, and we talked about that. We also learn about facial proportions as we drew them. We also worked on a project where we talked about movement and our bodies, and how these fun artists, Keith Haring, did figures in motion. Another element that we introduced here, as we mentioned Diego Rivera, was the beautiful murals that he did. We discussed one of the murals that is currently in San Francisco. And the students worked in teams, and they developed their own murals. They collaborated there, and they learned to tell a story, come up with a story, and tell it in sequence. So this was really fun. I think the students really enjoyed it. We also went to the fun part of this, and we learned to draw some characters. So we drew some Charlie Brown characters. And as we did this, we talked about facial proportions and how, we talked and we learned about that. We also started talking about Andy Warhol pop art, and how Andy Warhol used popular, very common objects in his artworks. And these are some of the artworks that the students came up with. We learned the concept of repetition and also color variations. And look here at the color variations, how even though the shapes are the same, the feeling that you get from each one, like Jalen's cups, the background color and the foreground being different, it just changes the feel of it. And we learned that it really makes a difference. All right, so we continue with our next chapter, and this is emphasis and pattern. We'll learn different ways to emphasize our main subject. We discussed how this particular artist, who he's still alive, and his name is Burton Morris, emphasized his objects, his main subjects in the paintings that he does. The students chose popular, very easily recognizable objects for this, and the task was to emphasize. Some created patterns to make frames around them, and some used background colors, contrasting background colors to do that. Espen, for example, he chose a complementary color scheme, as well as the frame around his beautiful drawing. All right, so we'll learn about ancient mosaics. Actually, I showed them a Mayan mosaic, and we learned how to create our own monogram. We learned that word as well. So they all use the first letter of their name or their full name to do that. We cut out different shapes, and then we found ways to fit them in. And this process they learn is called inlay. All right, so for our last chapter, we learn about balance and movement and space. And also we explored ways in which we can express movement. We started by talking about balance, and we use symmetry in our abstract tree compositions. And we also learn that we can achieve balance not only by making exactly the same on one side and on the other side, but we also, there is something that is called approximate symmetry, which is there is slightly variations, it's still balanced, and also asymmetry, and we can do that as well. Here are some more of those beautiful trees. And we learned that by doing vertical, very strong trees, we bring that strength to our artworks. They really had fun drawing these trees and trying to bring about balance. These are some more of those. And I would like to point to you Grace's beautiful mural. She used a central, beautiful, strong tree, and then her composition is so unified and balanced and so pleasant to look at. We learn with this wave that diagonal lines create movement in our artworks. And we understood that line direction is very important. So we all did they all did their own version. We also identify that we can bring this stress with this diagonal lines, and we compared it to how peaceful and calm a composition, a horizontal composition is. As you can see, Kayla achieved that, even though she used the movement, the diagonal, and to express movement on the dolphins, and the peaceful and serene setting of her background. As you can tell, they really all brought their own emotions and their own perspectives on this beautiful wave. We actually discussed the wave by our Japanese artist Hokusai, and it was just amazing to see what the students, each one, brought to it. They really made the painting their own, and it shows. As you can tell, they're so different and all showing movement with those beautiful diagonal lines. All right, and this is some of the things that we are working on currently. We are learning to use the space in an indoor space. And we are not doing a one-point perspective yet, but we'll learn that we can have still the foreground and the middle ground and the background to have that sense of depth in an indoor space. And we are still using that position and size. So Clint, I think, did a wonderful job of doing that. And he even went one step forward and added a beautiful outdoor space, like even farther away in the background. All right, and these are more of those indoor rooms. I love how Aaron created his own dreamlike kind of bedroom. That's him on the slide coming down. All right, so this will bring our slideshow to an end with Johnny's beautiful work. As you know, Johnny has been home most of the time, and he has this beautiful collection of artwork that he has been doing throughout the year. So thank you, Johnny, for sending that to us. And this brings me to the conclusion of the lower elementary. And now it is my pleasure to present to you the upper elementary portion of this art exhibit, where we are going to present the research projects.
Claude Monet.
By Jolie
Alec.
and Melody. Birthplace and death. Claude Monet was born in Rue Lafayette, Paris, France. He died on November 14th. He died in Givigny, France, December 5th, 1926. He was a French painter.
Training. How did he train? He started art school at the age of 11, and he went to Le Havre.
Did Claude Monet influence his art? In the late 19th, Claude Monet and the other rebellious artists staged a privately organized exhibit of work in a new contemporary style.
Relationships. Claude Monet had, well, shaky relationships, like with Augustin Rodin, a famous sculptor. They were not the best because he had a very cranky attitude.
Style. For his style work for French Impressionism.
Movement. Monet and his fellows of the world with a different touch of freshness to their lighting, and their style for the forefront of the image is still light and color created by it. And the key importance of the Impressionist style was the manner in which the sun or the moon clad objects in such different type of light.
Recurring things. Well, Claude Monet usually did paint things multiple times. He would go back and see if the weather had changed and the view, and see if it changed, and then go back another time. This is my artwork. The piece that I based it off is called the Water Lily Pond. The one on the left is the original painting, and the one on the right is mine. It was created in 1899. You can see it on display at Princeton University. This painting is a beautiful painting of a bridge over a water lily pond. He has a very strong love for light. As you can see, the flowers are a lot brighter as they would be in real life.
This is line painting. Line painting is called the Water Lily Pond. It is a beautiful bridge over a pond of water lilies. It was created in 1899 and made in French. The elements are his love for light, and there are many flowers and trees on this painting. It looks very bright. And Claude Monet drawing this painting during the last 30 years of his life, and often considered by the art critics to represent his best work. Many experts have shown that this painting is the best painting that he drew in his life.
This painting shows the sailboat sailing, and he uses little marks and used oil paint to paint. The picture on the left is his real painting, and the one on the right is mine. The reason I chose this painting is because I like to go sailing. I also like the shining reflection on the water. Thank you.
Thank you.
3, 2, 1. Make Ash by Liam, Sahil,
And Kathleen.
Penrose Stairs. The Penrose Stairs is an optical illusion that makes the staircase infinite. To see this illusion, you must start from one end of the staircase and then make your way to the next. You will see you are going in circles again and again. The medium was ink, and it was created in December 1953. As you can see, the real drawing has a medieval theme to it, and my drawing is basically the base structure. Penrose Stairs continue. I analyzed that Mick Escher shaped the staircase in such a way that it was actually infinite, but also looked like a real castle staircase. I can see that Mick Escher created it by angling the lines to form a staircase. The form of the inside is forming a square shape, and I can also see the painting is focusing on the staircase.
Impossible Cube. The Impossible Cube is a three-dimensional figure made into a drawing by Esther. It superficially resembles the actual three-dimensional cube, except one of its lines is on top of the other lines. This line makes the cube special and impossible. This is my drawing of the impossible cube on the left. It was drawn in 1958. It is displayed in the National Art Gallery of Canada.
The impossible triangle. The impossible triangle is also known as the Penrose triangle. It could never actually exist in a three-dimensional world. The Penrose triangle is an impossible figure that was created by Mick Esther. Here is my drawing, and here is the real drawing.
Art style. His art style was modern. He drew buildings, structures, and patterns.
Education. McEster received his formal education at the Technical College of Delft Haarlem School of Architecture and Decorative Arts.
Fun facts. Mick Esther was not a mathematician. In fact, he wasn't even good with mathematics. He started out by drawing landscapes and animals. He almost designed the currency for the Dutch. He was movement and legacy he left behind. Mick Esther was considered to be part of the Surrealism movement. Surrealism is the experience of unconsciousness and dreams.
He created more themes of art and created many optical illusions that helped the world think of art as a different way.
Thank you.
Park Place by Adam
Bryson,
and Justin. Date of birth and death. Parkway was born on December 18th, 1879 and died on July 29th, 1940.
who did Paul Klee study with? He first studied in a private art studio for 2 years. In 1900, he joined the studio of Franz von Stuck.
When did Paul Klee study? Paul Klee studied from 1898 to 1911. What is Paul Klee's art style? Paul Klee's art style was Cubism, Surrealism, and Expressionism.
Paul Klee's movement. His movement was Cubism, Surrealism, and Expressionism.
Paul Klee art influences. Paul Klee's greatest influence of art is Kandinsky, a godfather of abstraction. He is also influenced by Mackay, Mark, Alexander von Jawlensky. Symbols. One of Paul Klee's books called The Thinking Eye tells most of his symbols mean. One of his symbols is the fish. It represents the essence of space, but in other pictures it could mean the essence of movement.
Stories. Paul Klee was also a musician. He started to play the violin at age 7, and at age 11, he joined the orchestra. Later, he joined the Bern Music Association. During the First World War, Paul Klee was asked to paint camouflage on warplanes.
Legacy. Paul Klee's paintings were a starting point of modern art, and he also made new art styles. He also produced about 9,000 paintings. Heroic Roses. Heroic Roses is one of Paul Klee's art. On the left is a picture of mine, and then on the right is a picture of Paul Klee's.
Separation in the evening. Separation in the evening is trying to show the sun rising and the moon setting. The one on the left is mine and the one on the right is Paul Klee's.
View from Red. The one on the right is Paul Klee's and the one on the left is mine. Thanks for watching.
Alexander Calder by
Adonai.
Ciao.
and Dean.
Alexander Calder's parents did not want him to be an artist, so he decided to study mechanical engineering. An intuitive engineer since childhood, Calder did not even know what mechanical engineering was. He received a degree from Stevens in 1919, and his work first gained attention in Paris in the 1920s, and was soon championed by the Museum of Modern Art.
Alexander Calder's birth and death. Born July 22, 1898. Place of birth, Fullerton, Pennsylvania. Died November 1976. Place of death, Connecticut.
How and where did he train? Did he receive formal art instruction? Calder loved the circus. In his 20s, while working at the National Police Gazette, he was asked to produce a series of illustrations of a circus troupe. Soon, the 2 suitcases became 5, and Calder began to make some modest earnings from the venture.
His relationship with other artists. Calder was influenced by Fernand Lagarde. Fernand Lagarde was a French artist, and Lagarde admired Calder's work. Calder and Joan Miro, who was a Spanish painter, lived in Paris at the same time and became close friends. As you can see on the screen, that's Fernand Lagarde, and the next picture is about to pop up, probably. That is Joanne Miro.
What are the themes that Alexander Calder uses? He was the son of well-known sculptor Alexander Sterling Calder, and his grandfather and mother were also successful artists. Alexander Calder is known for inventing wire sculptures and the mobile.
Fun facts. Even though his parents were artists, they do not want him to pursue art. The title of his most famous works is a pun in French. His abstract sculptures are inspired by forms found in nature.
The legacy he left behind. 3 owned American artists also branched into large-scale abstract sculpture, jewelry design, toy making, and the performance of an extremely detailed miniature circus, among many other things.
My art slide. Title and type. Flowing rhythm. Description. Flowing rhythms are created when shapes and forms are repeated. The result is a sense of movement or flow.
This is my art piece, and it's called The Mobile, and the date was made in 1932. Description. It was described as mechanized pieces and defining motion as their crucial characteristic. I like this sculpture because it was manipulated by means of cranks and motors. I chose this sculpture because I wanted to focus on the main reason why Alexander Calder is a famous artist. Another reason why I chose this sculpture is because I want everyone to know that this type of art is an art that he was known for. So when the audience sees my slide, they will get a brief explanation of what he was known for. This sculpture shows the main style he focused on, which is mobile.
My art slide. The title of this art piece is called Model of Man, and the description is Alexander Calder was commissioned to make the sculpture for Montreal's World Fair in 1967. On the left is the actual sculpture, and on the right is my recreation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I hope you enjoy.
Weasley Kadensky by Brianna,
Aubrey.
and Purnell. Where and when was Weasley Kadensky born? Weasley Kadensky was born in Moscow, Russia, December 16, 1866.
Where and when did he die? He died on December 13, 1944 in Moscow, Russia.
Where did he train? He trained at a private school. The picture to the right is a picture of his private school. Has their relationship with other artists of his time period. He formed a relationship with a bunch of artists and made the group called the Blue Riders.
Art styles: Der Reader, abstract art, modern art, and impressionism.
What art movements is he considered to be part of? An art movement is a tendency or style in art with a specific common philosophy or goal followed by a group of artists during a specific period of time, or at least with heyday of the movement defined within a number of years. His art style was abstract and impressionism.
Fact. He was a designer and a photographer. He painted the world's first abstract art. He trained as a lawyer and he was inspired by music. What legacy did he leave behind? He left behind abstract impressionism and art.
The people or events influence his art. His art was influenced by painters like Claude Monet, as well as music compositions and philosophers. His early paintings were landscapes that were influenced by Impressionist artists, as well as pointillism and fauvism.
The Blue Fox painting. The Blue Fox painting was made by the Blue Riders in 1911 in Germany. The painting is Impressionism art. The medium the Blue Riders use is oil on canvas, and the medium that I use is paper and paint. I like this several circles. On the left is mine, and on the right is Wolski Kondensky's. I like this because of the bright colors. It reminds me of playing with bubbles. To make this, I use watercolor on paper.
This painting is called Upward, and to the right is the original, and to the left is mine. The left one, he used paint and shading, and I just used colored pencil and crayon. I like this painting because it has some good shading and has a good vibrant background.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pesavios by Colin, Janice, and Isabella. Birth and death, basic facts. He's a Spanish painter. Birth October 5th, 1881, Spain. Death April 8, 1973, France. Height 5 and 4. Age 91 years old when he died. Naturally Spanish. He's the mostly known for creative cubisms.
Where did he study and what influenced his art? He studied at the School of Fine Arts, Madrid's Real Academy, and what inspired him was African art. This painting is called The Old Guitar Man.
Styles. These are his styles of art: Cubism, Surrealism, Modernism, and Symbolism. There are three periods of arts of Picasso's arts: Blue period, Rose period, and Cubism. The artworks showed are untitled, some of them.
Places to find Picasso's art: Barcelona, Spain; Lucorne, Switzerland; Malaga, Spain; Paris, France; and Madrid, Spain.
His artworks and their names: Harlequin, Guernica, and Bull's Head, and many more.
His painting. Carlos Picasso started his painting in 1942. He was talented in painting and art. My Jolly React. My Jolly React has froggy background. The bullhead is shaded with light gray pencil. The shade of bullhead is colored with cat coral black pencil.
This is Pablo Picasso's self-portrait from 1901, and it is from his blue period. Picasso was only 20 years old here, and when he composed this, but he looks older in this portrait. There are cool tones expressed, especially the deep purple color on the coat. I used markers and colored pencils for my interpretation.
The Picasso's art. On the left is Picasso's art, and my drawing is on the right.
Thank you. Paul Cezanne.
By Maxwell,
Logan, Lauren, and Oli. What is he famous for? Cezanne is known as the forefather of Fauvism and the precursor to Cubism. Fauvism is a style of painting with vivid expressionistic and non-naturalistic use of color. This painting is by Cezanne and stuck out to me because he made the mountains more colorful than they usually are. Where and when he was born and died. Cezanne was born in Aix-en-Provence in France. He died on October 22, 1906, and was born on January 19, 1839, living for 67 years. Who he was inspired by. He got his inspiration from the writer Émile Zola, a writer who went to the same college as him. Where did he train? He was an artist who trained at the Collège Bourbon. What was his relationship with other artists? Napoleon III opened an art school for students who had been rejected from Salon de Académie. This school was called Salon de Refuses. Some of the artists who went there were Edouard Manet, Camille Pissarro, Claude Monet, Pierre-Augustin Renoir, and Edgar Degas. What art movements was he part of? He liked to draw nature as a kid, which then influenced him to start becoming an artist. He was part of the Impressionism art movement.
his style. He used Impressionism and Post-Impressionism and sometimes Cubism in his paintings. Impressionism is putting movements into the paintings. Cubism is using shapes to make art.
Facts. He had a bad relationship with his rich dad. He had a dark period at one point, dark as in depression. A lot of his paintings included mountains.
His legacy. His paintings that were left behind influenced many artists after him to paint related artworks.
Here's my inspiration. It's called the Pyramid of Schools. It was made in 1901. And here's my interpretation.
On the left is what my interpretation, and on the right is my inspiration.
On the left is my inspiration, and on the left is my interpretation, and on the right is my inspiration. My art is on the left, and on the right side is my inspiration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Penny Rousseau by Kira,
Caleb,
and Danny. His birth and death. He was born on May 21st, 1844, and died September 2nd, 1910, at the age of 66. And his art style was painting, and because he had no academic training, many could tell through his heart that he never went through an art school. His relationship with other artists during his time.
His relationship with other artists during his time wasn't very good because everyone turned him down. Did he get any instruction? He didn't get instructions and was self-taught because he was poor and couldn't afford an art class.
His story. He had a job as a toll collector, and during that time he taught himself how to paint due to every artist turning him down because he was poor. He never profited from his artwork. Many artists after him actually got inspiration from his art, such as the Sleeping Gypsy. His movement. During his time, there was a primitivism, which is art of primitive people from long ago, and naive art, which is art from an artist that lacks art education.
Where did he train? He trained in Laval, Canada, and what influenced his art were postcards, the jungle, and the zoo. Our art inspiration.
My inspiration. Henry Russo inspired me to make this picture because his drawings are so exotic, so I made this picture called Colorful Water.
The Hunter and the Hunted, and my inspiration was surprise. The Hunter and the Hunted was inspired by surprise because Henry Rousseau's old idea was to have the tiger to hunt the hunters, but later scratched the idea. I took his idea and turned it into my own art because I had a similar experience with my pets.
My inspiration. This painting inspired me because I love how realistic it looks. I love the simple colors and details of this beautiful bird. I love drawing this painting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Georgia O'Keeffe by Annabelle,
Cole, Maria,
and Tris. Who is Georgia O'Keeffe? Georgia O'Keeffe is an American artist who paints nature to express feelings. She is known for her flowers and deserts. She was born on November 15th, 1887 in Sun Prairie and died on March 6, 1986 in Santa Fe. Artist Georgia O'Keeffe was born on November 15, 1887 on a wheat farm in Sun Prairie, Wisconsin. Her parents grew up together as neighbors. Her father, Francis Calixtus O'Keeffe, was Irish, and her mother, Ida Toto, was of Dutch and Hungarian heritage. Georgia, the second of 7 children, was named after her Hungarian maternal grandfather, George Toto. How she started painting. At the age of 10, Georgia became an artist. She went to art school, but they did not teach the style of art she wanted. She found inspiration in Arthur Wallace, who put the shapes and colors on paper or a canvas. Sadly, she lost her eyesight and needed help with painting. She lost her eyesight due to a disease she had.
Fun facts of Georgia O'Keeffe. She was the most successful woman painter of her time. She was known for painting her own style. She studied at the Art Institute of Chicago from 1905 to 1906 and at the Art Students League in New York from 1907 to 1908. She started to have lessons with Sarah Mann, a watercolor painter. In 1924, she married Alfred Stieglitz, a New York modern art promoter and gallery owner.
Georgia O'Keeffe paintings. That's one. That's another. That's another. And that's the last one. Virgil O'Keeffe's most famous painting. Virgil O'Keeffe's most famous painting was called The Black Iris 3. Virgil O'Keeffe painted Black Iris 3 to encourage the viewer to look and see the flower and to consider different ways people see it. Annabelle's artwork. For my artwork, I used this picture. I liked how Georgia O'Keeffe did to the background. Instead of just adding blue to the flower, she also added it to the background. For my picture, I used different colors for the flowers and the background.
School's artwork. I like this school because it calms me down and reminds me of things I like. My artwork. I like to use gray as a shading for the abstract image. It really shows. The image is abstract, so it means you can't really understand what it is.
Maria's artwork. I liked this artwork because it reminds me of all of them and it shows a lot of calm emotions. Thank you.
Thank you.
George Seurat by Kai Y.
Ariella.
And Charlotte.
What was he known for? George Seurat was known for creating pointillism with paint. One of his most popular pieces was A Sunday on the Grand Château.
Birth and death. He was born December 2nd in 1859 in Paris, France. He died March 29th in 1891 in Paris, France. That's a picture of him.
Relationship with other artists. George Seurat had worked on a painting, but it got rejected by the Paris Salon. After he and other artists had formed the Société des Artistes Indépendants. During that time, he also befriended fellow artist Paul Signac.
Where he trained. Near the mid-1800s, he was enrolled in the École des Beaux-Arts, where he trained under artist Lemon. He received formal art instruction around 1875 when he attended a local art school and studied under sculptor Justin Lequin. That's a picture of Justin Lequin.
His legacy. Seurat was buried on March 31st, 1891 at Cimetière de Père-Lachaise, the largest cemetery ever in Paris. He left behind a legacy of artistic innovation, though dying at the very young age of 31.
Fun fact. He took a scientific approach to his work. It took him 2 years to complete his best work, A Sunday Afternoon on the Island of Grande Jatte. He died at 31 years old due to a sickness which may be pneumonia. His final piece of work was the circus, which was never finished.
Influences. During Seurat's training in École des Beaux-Arts, the Impressionist ways of conveying light and atmosphere influenced Seurat's own thinking about painting.
Movements he was part of. When Seurat started doing art, it was during the Impressionist movement. When he started doing the pointillism technique, Impressionism had lost a great deal of its initial momentum. Those are pictures from the Impressionist movement.
The art piece that I chose was Le Bec de Haut Grand Can, and this art piece was made while Seurat was at work while on the Normandy coast of 1885. This piece is currently displayed at the Tate Gallery in London.
He had oil sketched his piece and included light and color. This technique takes a while, but the outcome is very beautiful depending on how long you work on it. I admire how he uses one color that makes dots to form a shape and slowly make it into what he wanted it to be. The main subject that the author is trying to emphasize is the rock, and then the ocean, grass, and land will be the setting and where it takes place. To the left is the original one, and to the right is mine.
Let's tour the Eiffel. He painted this work of art the same year the Eiffel Tower was constructed as the grand entrance to the 1889 World's Fair. If you want to see this piece of artwork, you can see it in the Fine Arts Museum in San Francisco, California. He used the oil on a canvas medium and the pointillism technique. This painting is only 6 by 9.5 inches, making it small in real life. The main subject is the Eiffel Tower, and other elements are the bridge and the car that is passing, and the blue sky as the background. On the left is the actual painting, and on the right is my interpretation.
The lighthouse at Home Floor is created in 1886. You can find it in the National Gallery of Art in Washington. The medium was oil on canvas. The lighthouse seems to be far away with the sand closer. The lighthouse is the main element along with the beach. There's a building on the right side of the canvas. He used pointillism or divisionism to create this painting. On the left is the wheel painting, and on the right is mine.
Gustav Klimt.
Gustav Klimt.
By Olivia A.
Calliope. Laura.
And Mahmoud.
Who is Gustav Klimt? Gustav is an Austrian symbolist painter and one of the most prominent members of the Vienna Succession movement. He was born on July 14, 1842 in Bergmartin, Vienna, Austria, and he died on February 6, 1918. During his time, he was heavily influenced by Hans Makart, who was also an Austrian symbolist painter. Church in Cassone. It was painted in 1913. It's an oil painting. It's located at Lake Garda in northern Italy. The picture had disappeared for many years, stolen after its owner sent it for safe storage during the annexation of Austria in 1938, and having resurfaced, it was sold in 2010 for nearly 27 million.
What movements was he part of? Gustav Klimt is part of Art Nouveau, modern art, symbolism, and Vienna Succession. How and where did he train? In 1876, he enrolled in the Vienna School of Arts and Crafts and left in 1883. Did people or events influence his art? Art historians note an eclectic range of influences contributing to Klimt's distinct style, including Egyptian, Minoan, Classical Greek, and Byzantine inspirations. Klimt was also inspired by the engravings of Albert Dürer and the Japanese Rinpa school.
A Bush Under the Tree is one of the paintings that had stuck out to me for all the little dots of different colors. For this painting, Gustav uses optical blending.
The Tree of Life. The Tree of Life is an important symbol used by many theologies, philosophies, and mythologies. It signifies the connection between heaven, earth, and the underworld. And the same concept is illustrated by Gustav Klimt's most famous mural, The Tree of Life.
A bush under the tree features 3 bushes under a couple of trees. It features many colors, for example, a lot of green, yellow, and some light blue.
The Church of Cassone painting features a village with a church. The green pattern cypress trees contrast against the light gray stone buildings.
The flattened perspective also highlights some important pattern and texture where it clipped. This is one of my favorite artworks by him.
This is the sunflower. The sunflower features a sunflower in front of a bush in a garden. The flower is on a bush filled with lots of different types of flowers. The main focus is the sunflower. The mix of blue and green make the leaves, and a mix of blue and green that are a little more distinguished makes the backdrop.
Thank you.
So I hope you enjoyed our virtual art exhibit tonight. Thank you to our upper elementary students for presenting their research projects. You can see they learned a lot about the artists themselves, the movements. And then big thank you to Miss Wang, of course. Miss Wang, I see you're here, for guiding our students through this difficult year, giving them the chance to express themselves through art. Do you want to say anything to help us close out?
Well, I just want to say thank you. I'm so proud of you all, and thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for coming and seeing the beautiful artwork that the children have been doing.
Yes, thank you for joining us on Facebook. We'll be back again tomorrow, live, same time, 6:30 to 7:30, except this time our junior high students are going to be presenting their junior high science gallery night. So see you all tomorrow night. Have a wonderful one. Good night. Thank you, Ms. Wang.
Thank you.